My name is Sam Jenks, and welcome to another episode of The Way We Source, a podcast hosted by Kodiak Hub, where we share our talks with procurement practitioners, leaders, experts, consultants, content gurus, and people that we find downright inspiring, diving into the role that sourcing and procurement plays in the way we live. If you like today's episode, make sure to rate the program and give us a follow. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a crusader of procurement technology, a disruptor in the space of PO management, a former supply chain professional from the agriculture industry. Some know him as Agent PO, the founder and CEO of Kavida.ai, the AI solution empowering manufacturing teams for post-PO management, for on-time deliveries, and much more. Anam Rahman. Anam, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.
We're very excited. So I have to ask, where does the name Agent PO come from?
A couple of different things. I guess one is we all know where language models are heading. It's AI agents. And second thing is PO. We're all going to be focused on the applications of AI agents on PO management, in particular post-PO. So the goal was to try and bring to life this assistant, right? Try to give it a face and identity. So that's where it came from.
Very fun. Very fun. I would love for our listeners to understand a little bit more about Kavida for those that are out there and don't know what you guys are doing. So if you don't mind, just for those that aren't familiar, give us a little bit of background. What's the solutions you're providing? And also, why do teams maybe need Kavida in 2024?
Got it. So what does Kavida do? Kavida has a product called Agent PO. Agent PO automates post-PO management. And our customers are mainly SME and mid-sized manufacturers. They typically have hundreds of suppliers. They're raising thousands of orders with these suppliers. And when you look at the way that the post-PO workflow is managed, it's all done on email chains and spreadsheets. And that was okay maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But since then, the world has really experienced some big shocks where supply chain disruptions are the norm. And that old workflow isn't fit for purpose. So we have an AI agent that coordinates with your suppliers, confirms your orders, manages your order revisions, and it works in the background, essentially. It then gives you an alert on Teams, on Slack, every time there is a PO change, there is a risk to an order. And we really believe that software should be running in the background, as opposed to something that you spend the majority of your day on. As to why companies need it, the knock-on effects of miscoordination for manufacturers when it comes to the fulfillment of their orders is just massive. So first, a typical procurement manager, thousands of line items to manage. The first impact is the production planning. You get the deviation away from what was planned versus what actually gets produced. You got downtime, switchover costs, and then the finance teams have all of these costs on air freight, on buffer stock, on anything on expediting logistics, on alternative suppliers. And then the most important impact is if you produce late, you deliver to your customer late. So then customer deliveries get impacted. So it's all about enabling procurement to coordinate the fulfillment of their orders with their suppliers so that everyone downstream doesn't have any issues.
If there is a statement that you can pull out of this that describes how procurement, if anybody's wondering if procurement is business critical, it's exactly what you just said. If your orders are late, your customers' deliveries are late. And I think that that's so important and really exciting that you guys are in this space, and happy to be, in the ProcureTech space with you. What made you choose to found Kavida?
I can't say it was planned. It was more of an obsession with the problem. It was an obsession with this problem. So about 6 months before the pandemic started, I just stumbled across this problem from an academic that had done some research about supply chain risks, in particular on food supply chains, and looking at the issues that could lead to starvation for millions of people in the developing world. And his thesis was, a disruption in one side of the world could lead to issues on the consumption of food on the other side of the world. And then when I investigated the issue in much more detail, this was very clearly a problem. Anything could happen. Now, back in 2019, life was good. Everything was working. The economy was roaring. So risk management really wasn't a priority. So speaking to companies at the time, they just were not interested about risk. Then it was just right place, right time. The pandemic happened a couple of months later. Now suddenly risk becomes a top of mind priority. And
Right.
my timing was just fortunate.
Mm.
And then it was
Now,
just an obsession about this problem. Like, why do orders arrive late? This is just an obsession about this. And then that leads you down trying to find the market and the users on who has this problem. And you see it's all procurement and supply chain managers.
why do orders arrive late? So that was kind of the core hypothesis, and I think that that's super interesting. I mean, when you look at sourcing and procurement today, where do you think that Kavida is going to be able to make the biggest impact in organizations?
For the SME and the midsize, immediately, we're talking like within a couple of minutes of using the software, it's the automations. So it's little mistakes that create a lot of the impact. So orders
Mm,
not being confirmed by suppliers, order revisions, managing paperwork. Procurement and supply chain manager, they've just got a million things to do. The last thing that they need to do is admin functions,
right.
right? So we get to automate all of that. Then it's the alerts about anything that could impact orders and being proactive, getting those alerts early. So there's some visibility about risks and you can take some slightly different decisions. So those are two areas. I think immediately in the immediate short term, like almost instantly, it's the automations about the admin functions surrounding the fulfillment of purchase orders. And then it's going on a journey about risk management and having an AI there to support you on this could delay your order. You might want to check this out. This could impact you. Check it out. And particularly SMEs and midsize, their risk management maturity really isn't high. And they don't go into market trying to buy a risk management solution. So going on that journey with them and having an assistant to make that process easy.
I think that you touch on something that's super interesting here, right? That the AI that Kavita is providing, and many AIs, is guiding a buyer or a user towards the root cause of a problem and a potential action to be able to remedy that problem, right? It's an assistant, as you said, an agent, something that serves. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about AI. It's a buzzy topic in
Mm.
emerging technology. I mean, how do you think that we as tech vendors ensure that we leverage these emerging technologies, but also keep the human in focus? I mean, really balancing AI without ignoring, of course, the HI, the human intelligence that's still required to be able to get the actual job done.
So I think that the humans, the procurement and supply chain managers, they should definitely be using AI wherever possible to free up their time and so that they can spend more time on negotiations, on making big decisions, the things that move the needle for their companies and let procurement add value. So wherever any opportunities that they get, look to automate, look to automate workflows, automate mundane, repetitive tasks. And the thing with procurement and supply chain is because they have a million things to do, there's never, it's not a threat to them.
Mm.
It's they want to automate these things so they can focus on the things that add value to their company and move the needle. So as a user, as a procurement and supply chain professional, there's so much of what they do is so admin functions that can be automated. So that's where I would start if I was interested, is just look at what can be automated on day one or really quickly.
Mm.
So, and then looking into how the data and querying the data can enable better decisions. Short-term automations, medium term, can we get the data in one place and ask it the right questions so that we can make the big strategic sourcing decisions?
That's an interesting topic. Can you give kind of because I think that it can become very abstract without concrete examples. Can you give a concrete example of that? Like, how could you query to be able to drive a better decision, right?
Yeah. So let's say, so firstly, you need the data all in one place. That's really critical. And for us, we've seen that the most critical data sits in the interactions between purchasing and the account managers from the supplier side, because that's where all the PO documents are. That's where all the email communications are. You can couple that with external risk data. So let's say I have my monthly meeting or my quarterly meeting with my supplier. I can ask it questions and query the data and say, how many times has this supplier not acknowledged my orders? How many times have they changed the pricing after I raised the PO? How responsive have they been to my requests? Or I could just more broadly say, pull up all of the metrics around supplier performance and risk so that I can go into those conversations armed. And then there's a couple of things that they can do. One is, once I got the data, now these are really structured conversations that improve the relationship, improve performance. So
Right.
I could set a plan, supplier development on, okay, look, we need you guys to improve responsiveness. We need you to be handing your documents in faster. Why are you changing the pricing? We have a price sheet agreed on 20% of POs. You've changed the pricing. Let's go back and renegotiate the price sheet. It enables all of these conversations that weren't happening before. That ultimately just improves the relationship, improves the working relationship with your supplier, deepens it.
It's a great insight. So, I mean, we're talking about the topic of AI. It's a buzzy one. The thing that I always wonder, because you and I both have spoken with hundreds, if not thousands, of procurement professionals, and we have the luxury and the privilege of doing so on a day-to-day basis, is artificial intelligence, the application of technology with AI, something for only digitally native companies, or do you think that the local corporate SME can be able to make use of this technology as well? And if they're not, what do you think is needed in those teams to be able to make use of that technology?
Particularly in our market, SME and midsize, I don't think you have any other choice than to figure out exactly how AI is going to add value, free up time, automate processes. I don't think there's any other. It's a bit like, not being on the internet when the internet first came out. You don't have a choice. You have to adjust. You have to adjust, because when your competitors are running a procurement team with one person because they've automated everything else, and now you need 3 or 4, you are less competitive. So if you don't adopt these things, the gulf between you and your competitor is going to be absolutely massive.
Right.
The challenge is, how do you make AI a tool and not a transformation? Particularly with SME and mid-sized manufacturers, how do you add value really quickly, minimize time to value, so that it doesn't need to be something that you are spending 6 months, defining everything and working with multiple vendors and pushing it top down and aligning multiple stakeholders. It doesn't need to be that. It can be tools, AI tools, and we're seeing a huge wave of them, of just appearing in all different use cases.
I think that's an awesome insight, right? How can we make it a tool rather than a transformation? And it's so important. It's a very important topic within ProcureTech as a whole, right? Procurement technology traditionally, and even still today, is a top down application, right? Somebody in a board or a C-suite says, we have this particular business initiative, and that trickles down, right, to project teams going out searching to find applications to apply and adopt. And unfortunately, like you just said, a lot of those solutions are actually more so focused on transformation than quick adoption and application. As our founder and CEO, Malin Schmidt, says, people, don't want to talk about plug and play anymore. They just want to talk about the play. They want to get to the game,
Yeah.
They don't want to be practicing in workshops talking about process mapping. And that's why quick time to value is so important for us. And I know that that's the same for your application of your solution. With that being said, you and I both know about PLG. What comes to mind when you hear the word PLG? And maybe could you give some background for our listeners that aren't familiar with the concept of PLG?
Yeah, so PLG is a business model which basically says we're going to get our users to try and love the product first, give them some value, and then we're going to make our money afterwards. In comparison to a sales-led approach, which is, you're not really touching and seeing the product. It's a much longer sales cycle. It's top down, like you were saying. You're doing your process mapping. You're building out enormous business cases, and then you make a big decision as to whether you go ahead or not. Whereas PLG is, we're going to skip all of that, and we're just going to get the product in your hands and deliver results, and we'll talk about money afterwards once you start actually using the product. What comes to my mind, particularly in procurement, nobody's cracked it. Nobody has cracked it. I think there's good reasons why. It's really hard in procurement because you've got so many different stakeholders, because data is everywhere. So the input data to get this software to work usually requires some kind of integration on most pieces of software. The suppliers, if there's any change management on the supplier side. So procurement, they have to deal with suppliers on one side, and on the other side, they have to deal with everyone internally, production planners,
right. They're the middleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're the middleman, yeah. They're the middleman, and very few pieces of collaboration software enable PLG to work in that way, where you can get multiple stakeholders, all have different priorities to work on a single piece of software. It's really, really hard. Do I think it will work in procurement? I think what we'll see more likely is a product-led sales approach, not necessarily a product-led growth approach where PLG, companies will go online and they'll literally just try the software straight away. I think we'll see much more product-led sales where they go online, they'll see the product, they will understand the value, but they'll still have a conversation. They'll want to get started first. They'll just need a tiny bit of guidance on how to get activated fast. I don't see a way where procurement, because of how interconnected it is externally and internally, where they will be able to buy software and just use it and hit the ground running. They will need a small bit of hand-holding.
Wow. Yeah. Super good insights. And I mean, like you said, the product-led growth go-to-market, which it is again, right? It's a go-to-market motion by tech organizations. It does fit better in MarTech, in sales tech, even in aspects related to fintech, where the business function is able to execute on decisions related to, for example, one other counterpart. In the case of sales, right? It's the buyer function, whereas the buying function, like we were just talking about, they are in an awesome position of power to liaison the relationship between internal stakeholders and also the suppliers. So that's great insights, I think. And I believe that you're right in saying that there is a product-led sales approach, and people want to touch, they want to feel the product. I think the reason why PLG has been so successful is because there is a particular grassroots aspect of it. Users use the product and make educated decisions about the solutions they're buying before they make larger adoptions. So again, it's tooling, not transformation. It's bottom up, not top down. Again, though, the question, I guess, is will that ever work within the enterprise?
Will it ever work in the enterprise? I don't think in the enterprise. I think
no.
It is such a long sales cycle that it almost always needs to be pushed top down, and you have all of these data security requirements and certifications that you need. I can't see it working in the enterprise. I can
so if we
see
say,
it being
successful
in mid-size. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So if it is going to potential for mid-size application, where, what parts of the processes in procurement, kind of where do you see that there can be applications of products that can be adopted and onboarded quickly by procurement organizations themselves?
So this is everything that we've tried to do, where the input is just, so previously, so this is the journey that we've been on. Previously, we had to integrate with ERPs because your purchase orders are raised on ERPs, and that's the input, your supplier name and the ERPs. We then start managing the orders after that. Now, integrations used to take 4 to 5 weeks or so. It means that you can't run pilots or POCs as effectively as you would like. And it was a real bottleneck. So when the input data is really easy to get, then PLG or product-led sales becomes much more real. So now we use a single sign-on. Procurement managers just log in, They sign in with their normal Microsoft or Gmail. And because all the purchase orders are in their inbox anyway, it takes 30 seconds to get started. Just confirm your first 5 orders, and the AI reads the documents, it structures that information, and then it can start coordinating with suppliers for you. So I see our use case as a really good one. But Sam, it wasn't easy getting here. And in fact, we had to go through a long, painful learning curve to realize that for the market that we're selling into, you can't do ERP integrations. You can't let that be
The
something that
bottleneck.
happens straight away. Yeah, you can sell it as an upsell a little bit later down the line when you've proven the value, and then it becomes a bigger decision, but it becomes an easy decision by that point. But once it becomes a prerequisite to use the solution, you are asking for trouble.
And we see this time and time again as well. And I think that it's something very interesting related to technology application in procurement, right? There is a lot of data. You said it before, right? Thousands of line items that are to be kept in check. The bottom line though is integration is doing nobody good if you don't know what data sources are to flow back and forth. And that should never become a barrier to adoption. And I think that that is a misconception sometimes of procurement teams. They look at, well, this has to fit within our architecture. Absolutely it does. But does something need to fit into an architecture from day one? That I'd challenge. That I'd challenge. I think
You
that this
are
is a this is a topic we could probably go and rant about for hours. I would love to though shift gears a little bit because you said something, this journey that you guys have taken has been iterative and you haven't gotten to where you are today, without some hardships along the way. What's something that was like a mistake or a big learning that you've had during your journey, and how did you maybe course correct, or what exactly have you learned from it as a founder of a ProcureTech company?
some big learnings. One is we thought that the smartest way to coordinate with suppliers on POs is through supplier portals. What we learned is that it works really well with strategic suppliers where you're spending a lot of money with and there is an incentive to improve collaboration, but all the problems happen on the tail end. And the tail end is usually the critical orders that don't make up a lot of spend, but it's that golden screw, that's needed to finish the product. And the tail end suppliers had no incentive to collaborate or coordinate with procurement. That was a huge stumbling block because on the last version of our product, if there's no communications coming in from suppliers on the portals, the system doesn't work. All the value
Right.
gets created from capturing that communication. So we had to make a big, big pivot, and it came out of necessity more than anything. When we were working on a couple of customers, suppliers weren't using it; they were still responding back on emails. So we just decided, hold on, can we just read the email? Can we just structure and analyze email? Yeah, we can. Oh, it works. Oh, maybe we should do the whole product like this. So portals in principle sound like they work really well. They only work under certain circumstances with the certain suppliers. This is one big learning curve.
That's an awesome insight. And I mean, getting to where those tail end supplier collaborations and communication were happening, right? That is within the day to day in their inbox. I mean, that's super good learning, but also I think something that's a lot of our listeners that are in procurement can probably take away as to what is the right application for a portal contra lighter and more dynamic ways to be able to communicate, as well as then also extract information and data from your conversations. Super interesting. What's something that now, and if we pivot away from maybe that particular item as you're learning, but what's something today that you wish you knew when you started Kavida?
Oh, definitely the product. Like if okay, so the big thing that I know now is don't write any code for the first 3 years, because whatever gets written at the beginning becomes useless. It is absolutely useless, and there's so much more that you can do to validate whether your product is going to serve the market without writing any code. All of that
Right.
product marketing stuff, all of those marketing experiments, are people clicking through? Are people having conversations? Wireframes, and the speed with which you can get those things done and validate. That's one thing I definitely would. And then build when you're ready. Build when
Yeah.
you're ready. You've got a wait list of people that are dying for your product. That's one thing I would do differently that I wish I knew at the beginning. And it's something, I guess, I was told that advice from people that have been through this journey multiple times, but I chose not to listen, and I wish I had. But yeah,
But I think that's a great insight, something that I think that, we've learned along the way as well. I mean, founded back in 2016 ourselves, we needed those early adopters to be able to find, not product market fit, but product customer fit, right? That initial understanding of what is the problem we're solving and being able to solve it for more than one company, right? And then you're able to scale, but that doesn't happen without a foundational understanding for what problem you're solving. And you can't
yeah,
do that without having a lot of customer conversations and a lot of iterations. So I think that this is, if anything, a great learning and insight for anyone that's out there listening, that's a founder of a ProcureTech company or working at a ProcureTech company or looking to get started, but also practitioners, right? There's a need to invest in early adopter programs, in
yeah.
innovation programs, to ensure that procurement technology can grow and continue to have additional product market fit for the masses. What's, if you have any additional insight or tip to share to anyone that's out there looking to take a founder journey of their own? You've now shared some great insights. One tip or a few tips that you have.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It is painful. It is painful. I think that would be the first thing. Like, are you sure? Are you sure you really want to do this? Because there will come times where it is all on the line, where you come to the brink, where code doesn't work. It's just about who can survive the longest, and if you can buy yourself enough time, you will figure out eventually. Some of the biggest companies in the world, like UiPath, for example, I think they took like 10 years to do their first million in revenue, and now they do billions. So if you buy yourself enough time, you will figure it out. But the problem that every startup has is they don't have enough time. But the biggest piece of advice I would say is, um, go secure your early adopters first that agree to work with you to iterate the product
Mm.
until it fits their needs completely and it solves the problem for them. Go put together a small group of those, um, and get their full commitment, full buy-in that this is the R&D journey we're going to go on. That will accelerate a lot of things, because there's a market afterwards that you'll be able to sell into that look just like those early adopters. Don't worry about how much those early adopters pay you. The goal isn't to get rich from your first couple of early adopters. The goal is just to solve the problem, because there is thousands, millions of other customers afterwards that you will make your money from. So that's what I would say is, go secure your early adopters first that agree to work with you, iterate with you to solve the problem, and don't worry about how much they pay you. Take a little bit so that you get some commitment. That will accelerate your product development timelines enormously.
Great insights. Perseverance, persistence, and also close collaboration with early adopter customers. Really, really awesome having you on today's show, Anam. So excited to see the journey that you guys are on, the path towards taking, and all the companies that you're going to be able to impact in such a positive way with their PO management. with intelligent AI technology that you guys are providing at Kavida. Before we let you go, I want to do a quick fire round where we have one question for a one word or a one sentence answer per question, getting to know you a little bit more as a person rather than just the ProcureTech founder that you are, Anam. Does it sound like a plan?
Let's do it.
All right. Is there a book or a podcast that you're reading right now, listening to religiously that you would love to give a shout out to or a suggestion to our listeners?
I'm reading it for the third time, and I don't read books more than once, but it's a Ray Dalio's.
Well, then it must be good. It must be good then.
Principles by Ray Dalio. It's the one thing that I just keep going back to. Every time I read it, I learn something new.
Very cool. We have a phrase in Swedish called paradrätt. It means when you're going over for dinner, it's the thing that you know you're going to be able to make to wow somebody. What's the paradrätt that you're making me if I'm coming over for dinner, Anam?
What, food?
Yes.
No. Damn, no. I probably would have only
ordered in.
Yeah, I would have remembered you coming in for dinner about an hour before, and then I'd be scrambling. That is the most likely scenario of what would have happened here.
Totally understood. If you were to be able to have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be?
Che Guevara.
All right. Interesting choice. Any particular reason why?
When I was when I was like 19, 20, 21, I used to be like a massive communist, and I was absolutely like inspired by these communist revolutionaries. And I picked up a book about Che Guevara, heard the story about Cuba and what he did in all of those other Latin American countries. And I was inspired by how they could galvanize, because so much of being a founder is about galvanizing people around you to support the mission. And he just became this this icon for revolutionary leaders. Doesn't mean I agree with his politics, but as a man and as a leader, I would love to ask him loads of questions about how he did that. The Cuban Revolution and everything there, and hear the story of all of that.
Awesome. And can't wait to see the journey that you guys are going to take and the those that you'll lead on your path as well, Anam. I think that's a fantastic way to round off. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing at Kavida, what's the best channels to do so?
Yeah. So definitely, if you're interested in actually solving this post-PO issue, head on over to our website, www.kavida.ai. But if you'd just like to reach out and have a chat, I'm always available via email, arahman, arahman, @kavida.ai. Just shoot me over an email.
Awesome. And now you're going to be on a lot of lists for sales development representatives trying to sell you products.
Yes.
But appreciate you being on today's show. It was fantastic having you on. And again, really excited to see where things take form for Kavida.ai.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me.